For everybody, Kailash, everyone. Is it? Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm mostly speaking into this mic because this is being recorded and it helps the sound pick up on the computer because I think you probably all hear me in the room. Good evening, my name is Jessica Khan. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Capitola. Thank you so much for being here today. We really are excited to hear your input on this project. Over the past winters, in January 2023, you probably all know that we had some damage to Cliff Drive. Some of those parking areas are still closed. Luckily, we were awarded a grant by both the Coastal Commission and the Federal Highway Administration to do some improvements to this stretch of Cliff Drive to keep it more resilient, keep it open to the public for the future. So we're really looking forward to you all hearing some of our ideas and hearing your ideas about this project. This is our very first public meeting. Tonight, our presentation is going to be given by our consultants on this project, CSW ST2. Robert Stevens and Breeze Kinsey are in the back of the room here, and they'll be leading our discussions. And so I'm going to hand this off to Breeze to get started.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And good to see you all tonight. Thank you for coming out to talk about a resilient future for Cliff Drive. As you all know, this is a very important connection for your community, and we could go a slide or two ahead, please. My name is Breeze Kinsey, as Jessica mentioned, and I'm with Civic Knit. We're supporting CSW on this effort to look at what are the opportunities, what are the limitations and challenges, and what can we do here on this particular stretch of Cliff Drive. If you could go to the next slide. And probably the one after that, we'll get a little overview of what we're talking about. I'm sure you're all quite familiar. This is a key connector between Santa Cruz and Capitola. This is a uniquely accessible stretch with two-way traffic on the Cliff Drive, perched atop a 60-foot bluff. And as we await, things are advancing in the back, but they are not in the front. And so,
screen on this one.
I'm struck at this particular location of Cliff Drive, how much is going on all at once. You know, this particular spot, you have the rail line coming through, you have seating available, you have a pathway that is going to be improved, you have parking and access to the coast, and an impressive view of the village, the wharf, the beach below. And if you'll give us one moment, we're going to take a look back here and see if we can keep things moving.
Sorry, technical challenges. We're in the post-COVID world, and we're still a little rusty at
Did any of you arrive by Cliff Drive tonight, or enjoy the view as the sun got low in the sky? It's been amazing in the past few days to get a break from the rains. I know they'll return again, but it's been good to catch our breath just a little bit.
What do you mean by path? Which path?
Path.
The path.
So,
path improvement. Which path?
Well, some of you may be aware that the Santa Cruz Regional Transportation Commission is currently doing environmental review for the rail trail. It's an extension of the California Coastal Trail. Though there are existing access ways along there, and kind of above the rail line, there are some benches that we have a lovely picture of. So imagine you were looking out Cliff Drive toward the coast, and there's a great route there now, but it will be improved to be a multi-use pathway. And
I just wanted to make sure that was the path we were talking about, and not the path that through many people's backyard.
I am less familiar with that path, but there are many intersecting considerations right there, and there are people's backyards that are right up against it from Prospect Avenue, is it? Yes.
Where the benches are.
And so
Why is it not showing all the
Along
screen?
with the improved coastal trail, there will be more activity there. And so that is something to think about as a neighborhood. What does that mean? I think it will bring a lot more visitors through, and people that are headed towards the village will be coming in on the path and crossing Cliff Drive. So this is a really important chance to consider how can those people be safest and have the best access to town, especially until the trestle is able to be rehabilitated or rebuilt. That's a huge challenge to the continued pathway as it goes down the coast. And so for some time, I imagine we'll see people crossing Cliff Drive at that location and coming down into the village.
I thought for sure me asking a question would help them fix it.
Here we go.
There we go. Yep, there you go.
Okay.
So
we'll go back to the meeting. We'll go to the agenda.
And so here's what we are, oh, and we just lost it.
Check the flip by his foot because I saw that. Yeah, that's on.
Oh, okay.
You're there, Robert, and for some reason it wasn't advancing.
It's there. You can see that?
Yes. And so we can jump ahead to our view of those many considerations. One more slide ahead, if you don't mind, Robert. And here's what I'm talking about, of a pathway. So there is a pathway by the benches, but the rail line is where the pathway will be improved and expanded. The Regional Transportation Commission is doing this project, and it's an entirely separate project from what we're talking about tonight, but it's highly interrelated. And if you can go to the next slide, we'll see that crossing that I was discussing, which shows where people come across Cliff Drive, access the bluff, look out over the ocean. There's some parking there now. It has some challenges as people have to back out into the roadway. And so there's a number of things that we can consider in this location as to how to make improvements. Looking a little bit at the history of Cliff Drive, you can see as far back as 1972, we have some great aerial photographs. And in 2019, more recently, it's a little hard to see the change from that location, but it has changed over the years. In the 90s, there was a repair of the roadway, and along the bluff top, there was a project to create a shotcrete tieback wall, which reduces bluff top erosion. It was able to support the walkway and rail at the edge and provide continued access while reducing erosion in this location, but that is beginning to reach the end of its life. And if you'll jump ahead to the next slide, you can see erosion has continued at this location, both below the wall and at the toe of the bluff. And so caves are forming. There is rock slope protection at the base of the cliff, but it is not enough to eliminate erosion. And over time, this has been happening for many, many years, probably since the last ice age, 15,000 years ago. Things are receding at about 6 inches on average per year. But if you look at what happened on West Cliff up in Santa Cruz in the past couple years, it is prone to an episodic, dramatic erosion all at once. And so trying to understand those vulnerabilities is a part of what we're looking at in this project. Next slide. And so with all of these considerations, what are we to do? Do we protect? Do we adapt? Do we retreat? As you all know, change is the essential nature of life at the coast. The sand rises each year and is eroded away. You can still walk on Grand Avenue, though you can't park there anymore. When there's a good break, there's still a staircase down to get to the hook, but it looks a little different than it did in years past. And we continue to interact with the coastline to try and make it safer for everyone, to protect the infrastructure that we have there, and ensure that the community has a resilient future here in Capitola. And so there are a few different options that we can consider. If we do nothing, the bluff will continue eroding. If you can take a look at this diagram here, it shows how the roadway and trail sit atop the bluff, and if there were, say, 5 feet of undermining, it could create a situation where 15 feet of the bluff top would erode, and that would impact both the trail and the roadway. But over time, or with a more dramatic event, it could potentially cause a larger recession of the bluff top that would begin to impact both the bike trail, improved bike trail on the other side of the road, or even the rail line. You can go to the next slide. We could consider protecting Cliff Drive in this location. What would that mean? Well, we could use various techniques to protect the bluff from erosion, protect from wave impacts, protect from rainfall. And if we were to do that, it would allow us to both hold on to Cliff Drive as it exists today, but also potentially expand and improve Cliff Drive. We could incorporate better bikeways along the coastal side of it. We could probably fit a class 1 bikeway that would go connect from that improved coastal trail on into the village. We could create a better parking situation with parallel parking rather than the perpendicular, so people don't back into the road anymore. There is significant room for improvement on the inland side and the bikeway there, so we could get to a class 2 rather than an unmarked lane. So there's a number of advantages to protecting, and that could look a little bit like this. If you go to the next slide, Robert. There are various technologies that we're investigating at this time. It could potentially be an expanded version of the tieback wall that exists at the top of the bluff today. It could be a secant pile wall that is set back a little bit, that extends far down and supports a cantilevered top. We're assessing at this time the geotechnical nature of the cliff, what the vulnerability is, what could be supported, which of these techniques would be most cost effective and appropriate at this location. But this work has gone on. Robert and CSW have done similar work up in Half Moon Bay, where at Murata Beach and the crossing of the river there, or the creek coming into the coast, there was significant erosion. The bridge had begun to collapse and was closed, and we were on the verge of losing the coastal trail at the location. But with some significant protections and incorporating design that matches the texture of the surrounding terrain, I think what was achieved is regarded as a resounding success. We were able to bring in a new bridge and protect the coastal trail and access at that location, allow the beach to remain open, to reduce the amount of rock protection at the base, though not eliminate it. And so there are these different techniques that we can use that could really extend the lifetime of the bluff and the cliff and what we're able to do on there. Perhaps we do not go so far. We acknowledge that there are limitations, or there are ways that we need to pull back, and we allow some erosion but continue to work at the top to extend the opportunity as much as possible. One possibility would be to pull auto traffic back a little bit, and by reducing the vehicle lanes, reducing the weight on the bluff, it would certainly have an impact on traffic circulation, but it could afford a greater width of a pedestrian and bicycle path. And you have seen this up and down in Santa Cruz, where there are locations where you've gone to one-way traffic, and the access it affords balanced against the impact on the neighborhood are things to consider. So in this particular instance, this is one example. It could incorporate Prospect or 49th, or 47th, but this is illustrating the idea of using 49th as one-way traffic that is paired with one-way traffic on Cliff Drive. This is an attempt to balance emergency access and emergency response, really, and egress in the event of a tsunami from the village area, but still provide circulation within the neighborhood. But these are just some of the things that we've been thinking about. We feel this captures in broad strokes, what is possible. But we are here with you all tonight to hear what you have to say and think more together about what kind of future you'd like to see for your community. What of these ideas immediately strikes you as exciting or scary or expensive or dangerous? Which of these ideas do you think you need more information to assess? And what kind of information is that? And are there things we've totally missed? Are there new ideas that you have that you can illuminate us and help shape this project? And so as a means to hear from you all, I think there's maybe just enough of us here that we should probably break into 2 different tables. And we have some boards in the back. Perhaps some of you saw those on the way in. As a way to get some feedback from each of you as to how you use this area, what you think about these potential adaptation alternatives, and have a little more of a conversation rather than presentation. And so rather than telling you the answers, we want to hear what you have to say and hear your thoughts. So I believe that I will be over at one table and perhaps be joined by one of you, and maybe the best way to do this is to split up, and Robert, you would take the other table, and we will take a chance to head to the back of the room and have a little conversation, get to know each other better, and hear your thoughts on Cliff Drive and a resilient future for Capitola.
And then we're going to meet back because we missed the agenda, so we're going to talk more, right?
And we will return to wrap up, hear what you each had to say, and maybe try and trade some notes from each of the tables and talk about where the project is going to go from here. So, thank you all.
I think 14 people, so 7 in each table plus one leader. So I have a clarifying question before we break out. Jessica shared that the funding can come from a couple of different sources, one of which is the Coastal Commission. They're generally advocates for retreat. Is there anything we should know about with regard to funding, if that was temporary? Is there anything?
I think only that the Coastal Commission is supportive of Capitola's efforts to assess all their alternatives here. We have had some initial conversation with coastal staff, and they would like an assessment that looks at the next century and really evaluates long term. What does this mean to protect and armor, or what does it mean to retreat? And how do those things impact the community, and how do the costs play out over
So I would encourage everybody to ask a question or comment, or if you could note them down. So from what I've already presented so far, my reaction to any questions, for the principal, here, you want to know. The first question I have is my favorite was next big one. As Reese was illustrated, a couple of alternatives on one, much more full covering the entire. We do not just see the critical concern. That was a big one. I'm not sure how many of you, that's something that's always happening. Pleasure point. Look, and there it is. A giant quick massive wave. And so that is a lot of money. There is significant funding. So let's say on the low end, let's say 5 years, challenging, let's say it's done nothing, the wall that's out there. I eventually start early to say you can absolutely protect the entire 40 years from now. To know that is your interest or what you should evaluate. So, understand. So, assuming we're going to do something and we're going to do that, we either have to go after that by making some repair.
We're talking about 100 yards, 500 yards, half mile. What are we talking about?
We missed the scale on this, maybe I would say that it's probably a quarter mile at most. We're really looking at the drive here, and we recognize here, so it's pretty much the board. What do y'all here? We are. Yes. Takes a little bit. And so.
Stairs,
where mobile flips,
and then
meets
how
flips
far
right,
up, because
they
they can also
right about
get
the layers from
the whole.
a little ways, pretty much the whole stretch essentially towards the village from that intersection on down to where they were about where the stairway is. So basically where that one house is, right? You can be right. And so when you look at it, it's right here. From the Elizabeth Street stairs. Okay, yeah, this is an area that's most contemporary. I love that. So this is the area that probably significant blood. That whole stretch of block. Very similar. It's possible that different techniques can be employed in certain portions of it. Certainly from overlook down the stairs,